Hey all, Tom Moran here from Tom's Big Spiders. With this episode, we're going to be rehousing two spiders from the same genus, Pseudhapalopus. First one we have is Pseudhapalopus species blue, or the Colombian blue bottle, and then we're going to show off my Pseudhapalopus species Colombia. She just molted after an incredibly long period of time between molts. I thought for sure it was going to be a mature male at this point, but she came out, put out a bunch of size, and picked up some beautiful adult colors. And I think these are two species that I don't know get the appreciation they should. The nice thing you're going to see, obviously I shoot these intros after Billy and I do the video, but one of the things you're going to see, at least with the Pseudhapalopus species blue, is they are very, very adorable, cute, inquisitive spiders. You'll see this one here always wants to come out. I was telling Billy before we shot this that this is one of the spiders, the few spiders that I keep, that when you take them out to feed them, she doesn't bolt to her burrow. She comes out and will kind of curl her legs over the side and explore, and you'll see that behavior here. So for folks looking for a rather laid-back spider, again, temperaments may always vary from spider to spider, but these guys I've found, and have spoken to some other people, I've heard the same thing from them, that they are rather inquisitive and kind of laid back, which is pretty cool. So could they make a good beginner species? We'll talk about that a little bit during the video and a little bit more during the end of the video, but I think they probably could. So enough of me talking. Let's take a look at two beautiful blue-bootied spiders, Pseudhapalopus species blue and Pseudhapalopus species Colombia. All right, so we're going to kick this one off by rehousing my Pseudhapalopus species blue, or Colombian blue bottle. I actually have two adult females. These guys are a wonderful little dwarf species. They get to be about 4 inches or 10 centimeters. We actually just had the tape measure out for this one. She's about 4 inches. And they are known for, which I hope is going to pop on this one, but it requires the right angle of lighting, their iridescent blue-purple abdomens. They're just beautiful spiders. There's kind of a grayish brown overall body color, and then this beautiful bright blue slash purple. They kind of go through different stages where it goes from blue to purple, but amazing spiders, and you don't see as much on them out there. I don't know why they're not more popular, because people love blue and people tend to love the little dwarf species. And this is, a decent sized dwarf. It's a good sized spider. I do have the other female. I'm going to put the rehousing video at the end of this one, a link to it. We put her into an 8x8x7 barbarous or reptile growth enclosure, and she has been in that for a while. And one of the reasons why I want to get this one out of here, this enclosure isn't too small for her. However, I've noticed these guys like to dig. The other one I put into the barbarous growth enclosure, dug underneath her cork bark. She stays in the burrow. Usually she'll come out and investigate. And this is one of the species I was just telling Billy. They're shy, but they're also inquisitive, and they will, this is one of the few I've had that, as you can see, when you jostle the container, they come up to the rim. And I've had a couple times where they've kind of sat on the rim like they're going to try to escape or get out. So I think that's kind of cute and endearing. The other one, she will come up, if she's out in the open, she'll come up and sometimes go over the rim or try to get up to the top of the enclosure. But when they are in pre-molt, heads up, if they're burrowing, they will seal off their burrows when they go into pre-molt, and then they come out after they molt. And that's what she did last time. So what we're going to do is get this one into something bigger so that hopefully she has some room to burrow, because I want to see some of that natural behavior. Now, let me see if we can get the top. Well, I told Billy we might not be able to get good shot, as you can see. Come on, get down, get down, get down, get down, no, get down, get down. Yeah, that's exactly. Now I can't even put the top back on because her feet are in the way. Little turd. They always do. I don't have many spiders that will do this, but these guys, no matter what you put them in, if you jostle the container and go out there, especially during feedings, I've gone in and dropped the roach in. As I'm dropping the roach in, the thing's scrambling out the other side. So we'll get some shots of her right before we go to rehouse her. And she literally moved the top. Stop it. You could take it off, but so. Just to give you the history of these guys, I got them as they were 1/3 of an inch in mid-2017. At that time, I kept them in a dram vial, slightly moist substrate in the bottom. I think I put some sphagnum moss on top so they can kind of hide in that. Then I rehoused them at about 1 inch into a 16-ounce deli cup, waited till they put on some size. Then I put them into this one here, which is a Systema Clip-It. They can get them at Walmart or Target, I think, for like $7 or $8. They're pretty nice for juveniles. I've kind of moved away from them because they're a little more milky. I found other things I kind of like, but they work great. They're about 9.3 inches by 6.7 inches by 4.7 inches, or 23.6 by 17 by 12 centimeters. As you can see, there's enough room for her to move around, but I want to put her into something a little bit different. So what we're going to be putting her into is this over here. Be careful because the top's going to close on her feet, so don't move it. Slide her that way. Might even be able to do a poke and pray on this one because she's already heading this way.
Yeah, she's going to fun.
This is one of the M design enclosures that I get off of Amazon. Unfortunately, there will not be a link to these. I've been trying to say this lately, and people come on, could you please give me a link to the enclosure? They don't sell them anymore. Every time I find one of these M design enclosures that I like, they stop selling them. Luckily, this time I was able to buy, I think, what do I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18 of them. So I was able to buy enough of them. But this one measures, just to give you an idea, if you're looking for a similar enclosure, it's 12 inches by 7 inches by 7 inches deep. So a decent size enclosure for dwarfs or smaller. I put larger juvenile specimens in here. I love them. Again, sad that they don't make them anymore because they were awesome for spiders. Then we have a substrate mix, which is peat, sphagnum moss with some vermiculite mixed in. I'm not going to have Billy try to get it, but the bottom layers of this are moist. The top levels are dry. That way, I found for species that like to burrow, they can go down and burrow to the moisture level that they need. So if they want a little more moisture and it is wintertime, I think you can hear the heat kicking on in the background. It'll dry out the air a little bit. That will allow them to dig down and get that moisture level they need to keep those lungs nice and adequately moistened. We have some leaf litter. We have some sphagnum that I have not moistened down yet. It's kind of more for appearance. Cork bark hide, and obviously the water dish, which we'll put that in afterwards and fill it up. But I'm hoping what this will allow for her to do is do some more burrowing. I kind of looking at the other one that's in the 8 by 8 by 7 barbarous growth enclosure. It's still a good enough size for her, but I've noticed it's starting to look a little bit small. So I got a funny feeling she'll be rehoused again. And keep in mind, I tend to do more rehousings than you need to. You could easily take this one as a 1-inch one, put it in something this size, and then put it into an adult enclosure after that. I just like to do more rehousings. It's kind of updates for these. Plus, I'm always changing what I'm putting my spiders into. So what we're going to try to do now is get her from point A to point B with minimal fuss. See how this goes. Honey, I need the lid. I need the lid. I need the lid. Stop. This is what I'm talking about. They're not like, I need the lid. You can't have the lid. Please give me the lid. There we go. All right. And unfortunately, her butt, let's see if I can get the flashlight out, which I notice has been running out of juice. There it is. That beautiful, like right now, they go through a stage where it's blue. Right now, it's more of a purple. And the funny thing is, she's almost got some of the orange that we're going to see on the next species. That's where you can kind of tell them apart. These guys are more blue, a lot less of that orange right there by the carapace at the end of the abdomen. And the other one, you'll see the orange is much more pronounced. And it actually, the carapace with this one being, I think I'm pointing to it in the camera, and I realize my thing's not even pointing to it, is it? The carapace on that, there we go. Carapace on this one, more of that gray-brown, and then the carapace on the other one, more of the orange. So we're going to see if we can get her into this here. She's one we could probably just poke into the other enclosure. And I try to explain to folks, I know there's other folks out there rehousing that do a lot of the poke and pray. The idea is to make sure that the spider is secure. The catch cups keep the airflow down so it doesn't trigger. All these little hairs are a sensory organ. So the slightest breath, these guys can go bolting. So we kind of make sure they're as safe as possible by not allowing them an opportunity to possibly escape. Get that over her. Where are there crickets in here? I haven't gotten crickets in weeks. Like, for crying out loud. I don't know if anybody can hear that, but kind of maddening. There we go. Get right on that. I'm going to go ahead and just set this right in here. No, that wasn't what I meant to do. All right, so let me get her going the other direction, but Billy wants to get some shots of her. I love these guys. They're cute, and I've had people ask, what's a good dwarf? Now, a note about, I'll have people ask, is this a good beginner species? It could be. The only issue I've had with them, they do start off so teeny tiny. They really are some of the smallest, and we'll talk about when I get into the next species we're going to do, which is Pseudhapalopus species Colombia. Some of the smallest things I've ever raised, to the point where I had difficulty finding them in their enclosures. And that can be quite intimidating for folks. I do think overall they're very hardy, especially this species. We'll talk a bit when we get to the other one about some issues I had with it. But overall, I think they're hardy. But I think for somebody just getting into the hobby, even 1/4-inch slings look tiny. We're talking about these can be an 1/8 to like 3/16 of an inch. Very, very, very small. It can be hard to procure prey for them. It can be difficult to tell if they ate. It can be difficult to tell if they're even in the enclosure. So what we're going to do is try to get her down into here. You need to go that way. No, you can't go out. You can't go out. You can't go out. Every single time. What did I tell you? No, not back into the old enclosure.
Oh my gosh.
Back in. What did I tell you?
She's so cute.
It's adorable. It really is. And they are very, I mean, this is one, again, if I were to be the type to handle, wouldn't have thought twice about putting my hand out there. I do not handle on general principle only because the spiders don't get anything out of them and it introduces risk. One of the things we try to show on the channel is totally risk-free. If somebody was rehousing this spider and they took their hand and they want to take it and put it back in, totally, that's more power to you. I just don't want it accidentally shooting up my arm or something, having Billy have to put down the phone and help me out. But my God, what adorable. I'm glad we talked about before we got into this, that this one was probably going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt. And I'm glad you got to see some of her personality. So again, talking about a good beginner species, obviously there was no, well, I hate to use the term aggressive, defensiveness whatsoever there. It was more just inquisitiveness. If I put my hand out, she would have crawled right into my hand with no problem. Kind of reminds me almost Homeoma chilensis. With the Homeoma chilensis, they're one of these species, and I've heard so many people say, I don't handle, but every time I turn around, I end up with one of these in my hand because they just go out to explore. You put your hand out to catch it. Next thing you know it, you're in an impromptu handling session. Adorable.
She's so cute.
I don't know if anybody's selling these right now. Hopefully people are selling. Hopefully, this is one of the species. Every once in a while, I do a species and I feature it, and it's because I honestly want people to check it out and buy it because I think they'd enjoy it. And especially if you can get ones with slings that are a little bit larger, I think it's well worth it because, again, you get them out of that little, like if they were selling them a 1/2 inch, I would say it's pretty good. Just know that if they're really teeny tiny, they can be difficult. We're going to talk about with the next species what I did to feed them, but it can be difficult to kind of grow them up because it's stressful when you have a spider that you can barely see. Right, we're going to give her a chance to relax. We're going to be able to fill this spot. Oh, a note about these enclosures. They do not obviously latch. And I forget to mention this sometimes, and I think the people that watch my channel appreciate this is how I do it. They're stackable. So what I do is, Billy just points right up here for a second. I have 2 shelves positioned in a way they can't open. I stack them up. They're too deep. And funny story, that one was where this tarantula crib was, right in here. We had taken my musculosa out of it. I was telling Billy this the other day, and I wanted to make sure that I slid it back in here so that it would keep this lid down, and I kept forgetting there was no spider in it, so I kept panicking because I wasn't adding water to it. I'd go in, oh my God, it's all dried out, and realize, oh no, it's the one that's empty. So now it's actually going to have a spider in it and be filled. So for people that ask, that's what I have. The shelves are set up so I can slide these in, and I have the whole row of them there. Works great. All right, moving on to the next one, and we're definitely going to, let's just concentrate on that for a minute. I'm going to put this one right on the shelf. I'm going to put the water dish in afterwards, just to let everybody know. I just realized my water thing's empty. So I'm going to go right in here for the time being. I will add the water dish, promise. Next one we are going to do is Pseudhapalopus species Colombia. This one just molted after, oh God, it was like months. I honestly thought I was going to get a mature male because it took forever to molt, and usually that molt that takes forever, it's a mature male, but it actually is not a male. I was very happy about, at least not yet. I have not sexed out the molt because she shredded it. But a little background on these, and I'm going to call myself out on this one because I wasn't completely successful raising these guys up. I got 3 of these back. Let's see if I can open the top. This one's a lot more skittish than that one. If we can get the colors to show up. Showing up. Yeah, so while Billy tries to get some good shots, a little dark, but we'll get some ones afterwards. I get the flashlight. I got 3 ultra tiny slings back in March of 2020. They were by far the smallest slings I have ever raised up in my life. It was intimidating, quite frankly. And I want to throw that out there. I've been doing this for a while. I've raised some tiny ones like Hapalopus formosus. And with these guys, I'm going to go ahead and get the top ready just in case. With these guys, they made those look like giants. They were just absolutely tiny. And I set them up in dram vials with a lot of sphagnum moss because the sphagnum allows you to kind of see them because they're little like dark specks against the sphagnum moss. And as far as, I'm going to go ahead and give her a break for a second. I don't want her all scared. And then as far as feeding, I was panicking. I was using turkey drumsticks. Yeah, I was feeding her turkey. Happy Thanksgiving. That's on my mind, obviously. cricket drumsticks where you take a leg off a cricket and drop it in. The problem is you couldn't tell if they ate. They're so tiny that even if they fed off the drumstick, you couldn't see it. So then what I ended up doing is introducing some springtails, and I found they could feed off the springtails. So it freaked me out at first because the springtails, I was worried they were going to hurt the spider. They did not hurt the spider. The spider was able to, I watched them feed off the springtails. I was going to try flightless fruit flies. The fruit flies were actually too big for the spider. That's how tiny they were. So unfortunately, right off the bat, one of them didn't even make it a month. I don't think that one's on me. It just failure to thrive. It was in the same situation as the rest of them. I couldn't find it. I was dropping predums in. Finally, I dug the stuff out. It was dead. So that one didn't make it long. The second one, the number 2, made it all the way to about that big or so, and it was about that big, and I moved it into one of the acrylic enclosure, little acrylic sling enclosures that are out there. And what happened is I had that one in acrylic enclosure. I had this one still in a dram vial. And the problem was the acrylic enclosures are very, very well ventilated. They're ventilated on the top. And I've mentioned this to caution people if you're using these enclosures, they dry out very quickly. And this was during the winter time. So what ended up happening was I had this one on a shelf with all of the other spiders I had in my little dram vials with this acrylic enclosure. And I had a good routine where I would basically go and moisten everything down every 3 or 4 days or so. Well, the thing dried out so quickly that I think it was like 4 or 5 days in between. The thing was bone dry and the spider went into pre-molt. It ended up molting, but it died right afterwards. So it looked great. It molted. It looked great. And then I found it was spread out. It looked fine and it was dead. And I think part of the problem was that enclosure dried out a bit during that time period because I was not aware that it was going to dry out that quickly. It was very well ventilated. So a heads up if you're using different types of enclosures. Keep in mind those dram vials, we like them in the hobby because they tend to hold the moisture in, and that's what's most likely going to kill your sling is if it dries out early on, and I think that might have been what happened with this one. I'm not sure. So that's 2. That one I'm not counting. The second one I'm blaming me because I think it did get too dry, and this is something you want to keep on the moist side. This one here I kept in the dram vial and then put into one of these here, which makes it a lot. It originally burrowed. It was burrowed all down in here, and if you notice the ventilation, I did the little tiny vent holes all around the side. So there's ventilation in it, but not enough that it dries out too quickly. I do think that was part of the problem. So I want to call myself out on that because, again, it's one of those things you don't think about when you're rehousing. It's like, oh, I got this beautiful little sling enclosure, not thinking that that sling enclosure might dry out more quickly than the other things you're using. And, of course, now she's all buried in here. This is going to be a fun one. Oh, come on, girl. There we go. They always want to go up. So heads up for folks. Now, looking at this one, I'm going to go ahead and put the cardboard over this a second while I talk. Actually, no, let's get her out of here. And then I got a starter burrow in here. I probably could have gone bigger on this enclosure. What I'm putting her in here, this one here, if Billy wants to get in on it, is one of the M Design enclosures. And again, they don't make this one anymore. I want to be very clear on this one, but it's 6.5 by 5 inches by 4.75 inches, or 16.5 by 2.7 by, or 12.7 by 12.7. I love them. For juveniles, they add a little more. They used to have a shorter version. They discontinued that one. They did this larger version. Now it seems like they discontinued this one. But this should give her some room to burrow. Again, I'm not taking any chances with this one and put her into something too big. Right off the bat, I want to make sure I can maintain the correct climate in here. I do have moist level down here, and then I went over and I sprinkled drier stuff on the top. Obviously, we have the starter burrow. And then what we're going to try to do is get her into here, which is not going to be fun because she's not going to... She's going to go all over the place. Boop. Aw, see if you can get her booty in there. Oh, it's gorgeous. And you can see more of the orange around the base, and then almost the grayish kind of coloration on the carapace, but there's also kind of an orangey ring around it. Just really, really striking spiders. And notice those legs. The other species we just looked at, the Pseudhapalopus species, blue. The legs are gray. This one has blue down the leg. So we'll see if she maintains that as she gets older. That's going to be a good enclosure for us. So what this will allow her to do, again, is do some burrowing and digging. I have a funny feeling that within a molt or two, she'll be out of here. We'll put her in her adult enclosure, but this should be good for the time being. As we were getting ready to shoot this, I looked at the spider, and she was actually spread out in here, and I could see how big she was. And I turned to Billy, and I'm like, we could probably put her in something bigger, but we're going to do this for the time being. Again, the rehousings don't hurt them. They settle in very, very quickly. This one will probably eat later today. I'll drop in some food. She did just molt recently. She's eaten twice. So she's still a hungry girl. But Pseudhapalopus species, Colombia, another beautiful spider. I found this one's been a little more skittish than the other ones. She is not one to go out like at this size. Those guys acted exactly the same way you just saw that other one act, the Pseudhapalopus species blue. This one's been a little more skittish overall. I would love to hear from people that have kept these. And then as far as growth rate, obviously in 4 years, she's gone from a teeny tiny speck to, what would you say she is now? About 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches, around there. So she's put on decent size. I've heard people say they grow very quickly. The problem is it can be difficult to see that growth in the first couple of years. It took a long time. Once they hit about that size, so maybe 1/2 inch, then I could see decent growth rate from the next molts. But it took them a while to get that big. For a while, they were just tiny little specks. They'd molt and be like, oh, look at it, it's just a slightly larger speck. But they are awesome spiders. Very, very pretty, especially for folks that like the blue. I actually love the overall body coloration of them. The grays, the bluish for this one coming down the legs. I love the little burst of orange and yellow on the abdomen on this one. I think it really makes that blue pop. They're just very, very pretty spiders. I will probably pop up a picture of one of the other species we showed earlier, because I have some pictures of them right after a molt where that blue is really popping. But there we go. First one we did was Pseudhapalopus species blue. This is the newer one to the hobby, Pseudhapalopus species Colombia. And both of them doing great. Both of them will obviously keep folks updated, but we'd love to hear from folks what you've seen with yours. So again, for folks that are looking at these going, hey, I really want to pick one of these up. I'm kind of new to that. Okay, let's throw it out there. Anybody interested in getting one. I don't care whether you've been in the hobby for a long time or you're advanced. They're amazing spiders all around, but I'm always on the lookout for something that may be a new good beginner species. These guys aren't particular. Well, I think the Pseudhapalopus species Colombia are still pretty pricey because they're fairly new, but Pseudhapalopus species blue are usually more reasonable. So that would be one thing that most folks that are looking for a new spider, they're just getting into the hobby or only have a few. That can be important. And I would say if you can find larger specimens, give them a try. Again, I can't overstate how tiny these guys start as their little teeny second instart slings. They are very, very small. I've been doing this for a long time. I've raised up a lot of teeny tiny slings. These guys freaked me the heck out. They were probably the smallest thing I have ever raised, and it caused a bit of anxiety. So I think in that respect, if you have teeny tiny slings, they may not be the best spider for somebody brand new to the hobby, because you're going to be constantly worried about your spider because you're going to have a hard time seeing if it eats, and you're going to have a hard time even finding it in the enclosure. So if you can find somebody that has bigger specimens, definitely give them a shot. I think they're well worth it. Once they hit around 1/2 inch or so, they start putting on a lot of decent size with each molt. And once they get those colors, man, they're just beautiful. And again, the inquisitiveness is fantastic. I'm thinking most folks would find that to be cute. It's not like a spider bolting out of its enclosure. It's a spider that's slowly exploring, which I find endearing. I think even somebody that's a little weary and just started keeping spiders would find that endearing as well, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I know I came to this hobby as an arachnophobe, and I know Eulathlus species red, they were called back in the day, now Homeoma chilensis. They were spiders that would go out and explore, and I found that to be the cutest, most endearing thing ever. So anyway, these would be ones that I would definitely recommend to folks that are looking for something a little different, a smaller species. Again, they only get to be about 4 inches, and a more docile species for somebody that's looking for a new beginner tarantula. So that will do it for this one. As always, if you like enough to subscribe, you can click that up there. I'm going to put one of the other videos featuring my last rehousing down here, something else up there. If you take the time to comment, I'll take the time to respond. Just know it can take me a few days because I get a lot of comments and I get busy. As always, guys, hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving for those of you who celebrated Thanksgiving this week, and we'll catch you all next time.